Hello, hello. This is Peter Palmiotti, and this is Making Comics and Art, episode. What is it? 226, something like that. How is everybody doing? Hope you are doing well. We got a few people watching already, which is always awesome. Um, so a few things off the bat. I did a piece for Nicholas Geer. It was a sort of fan commission. Not sure what he's going to do with it or whatever, but it's an amazing piece, and he's posted it on Twitter, and I shared it out on my Instagram and on my Facebook. You can go check it out. And I'll be posting the inks probably tomorrow. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure people love seeing that. And so Nicholas Geer is he's got the Relentless Tin Soldier book 2. I just put his link down below, and you can see Randy's website link and Patreon and your Facebook page. I just put into below the video.
Yes.
Yes, and me and Randy will be at Heroes Comic Con. And the news came just the other day that a certain other Palmiotti will be there.
Really? That's great.
I forget his name.
Johnny?
Jimmy Pine.
Is it John? Oh,
Johnny. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. And also Amanda Kana, my sister-in-law. So yeah, should be a great time. We're totally not prepared. I'm buried in work. We'll make the best of it. There's a lot of people.
It's gonna be fun. No, regardless of what happens, it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be a great time for us, and hopefully we'll get Randy's book done, Hawk in New York issue 7, which is bigger than every other issue before it. So,
biggest comic I've ever worked on. Biggest project I've ever worked on.
And what else would I want to mention? Yeah.
Heroes Con.
And also, go ahead.
I was just gonna mention that Heroes Con, for those that might not be familiar, is located in Charlotte, North Carolina, and it's one of the larger comic book conventions on the East Coast. Like, it's very much like, if you like mainstream comics like Batman, Spider-Man, Superman, like, imagine a convention built around that sort of fan base, and that's sort of where Heroes Con is now, in my humble opinion, as somebody who's been there a couple times, but never as a guest. I've always been in the Artist Alley and there as just a patron. And no matter how you go, you're probably going to have a good time if you're any kind of comic book fan. I can't plug for them hard enough, because I think they're one of the better conventions in the world. And I don't say that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like every time I hear somebody mention it, they say it's a great con to go to. And there's very few, really, when you think about it. It's like San Diego is amazing, but it's not really a great convention to go promote your work. You get drowned out by so much hoopla of everything else. Heroes Con, I hear, is great for independent creators.
Well, there's no Hollywood near Charlotte, and I think San Diego's close enough to Hollywood that there's a lot of that culture and that influence on that convention. And I've never been to that one. I came close once, but I've not been able to make it out there yet. I put my name in the hat for the lottery for that. And I don't know if that's still going on, but apparently you can win a lottery to get a ticket to go out there.
But yeah, we're both excited about Heroes Con, and frankly, it's probably the only convention I'm doing this year. I'm just trying to get a lot of books done. So, like next year or the year after for sure, I'll be doing a lot more uh, promotion around the States and whatnot. But yeah, excited that, my brother will be there and his wife. Unfortunately, that they're not bringing their cats, so we can't hang out with their cats. So, we got two black cats now. Um, but yeah, it'll be a good time. I want to mention also, like Kenny Calderon was in the chat a couple days back, and it was a lively chat, and it was great to see him. He's going to be at Heroes Comic Con. Not only that, but I found out that he's joined Legendary Illustrators, which is my art rep, Philip Russert's, um, collection of artists. So not only am I there, but Kenny's a new addition. So it was awesome to hear that. I've done, a sort of a part of a story inks over Kenny, and I love his work, and he's an amazing artist. And Phil is doing a art stream Wednesday nights at 7. It lasts 2 hours, and Kenny was in this past Wednesday's show, so it was great to see him work. He was working on an amazing Doctor Strange piece. And yeah, he's already offered me a beer, so I'm gonna hold you to it, Kenny. But yeah, so we're gonna talk about Hawk New York, and this, I'm working on Designated as per usual, sexy alien page, which is always fun. And we got some people in the chat and some people watching, so let's see who we got here. I got Landon saying hello and asking the all-important question: what is time-bound entertainment?
Time-bound entertainment is my publishing imprint. My business is called The Art of Randyl Bishop, and that means that I can do just a diversity of graphic design projects, illustration projects, animation, or whatever. A sign, like I got a guy who wants me to do a sign for him. Anything, and that's kind of how I make my rent. I mean, I'm not paying rent currently, but that's how I pay my bills, is keeping my umbrella big. But Timebound is a publishing imprint underneath that company that produces The Hawk of New York. And I've got another title that I've worked on in the past, but it's only got one issue out called Killing Time, which is more or less the cosmic part of the Hawk of New York universe. So it's kind of built for expansion. Like there's a lot of other characters and plot points and stuff I'd love to get to someday. Hawk of New York has taken up the bulk of my time and effort, and in promoting and in producing and everything. So time-bound entertainment is something that is related to that first story of Killing Time. In this first story, there's an interloper in this extra-dimensional galaxy called the Non-Universe, who manipulates the Grim Reaper into killing his own brother, who's Father Time. So he's tricked or manipulated the Father Time into killing his own brother, and it messes up the time stream. There's these artifacts that belong to those two, and that the Dark King sort of usurps. And all this was done before. I'm aware of DC's Black King story arc, but I came up with this before that, so didn't plagiarize for DC. Haven't even read that story. Just heard that there's a character called the Black King out there now, but it was something that set the stage for Hawk of New York to be possible. And as the series progresses, it gets a little bit more and more supernatural. and with more horror and cosmic elements to it. So hopefully that answered the question. I'm reading ahead in the chat too, Peter.
Yeah.
I'll let you take it back.
Yeah. So Dirk is here and saying hello. And Landon's Phoenix Comic Con is huge now. I guess I've been there, but it was like, back in the 90s. It's been a while. And Landon says it's called Pop Fusion. Not sure what that's in reference to, but
yeah, what is called Pop Fusion? Is that earlier when I was attempting to describe Heroes Con? Is that what maybe that was really?
Oh, maybe Phoenix Con is called Pop Fusion now.
Phoenix Con. So Phoenix Con has grown, like it's huge now.
Yeah,
that's good to know.
Yeah, it's definitely something. One I would like to hit, yeah, for sure. Design by comics in comic stores, or are you strictly crowdfunding based? Interesting that you crowdfund.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great question. I mean, the current situation is like I'm kind of primitive in how I'm promoting it, and it's time-bound entertainment is limited to where I can travel and the sound of my voice at the current time. I'm not doing any crowdfunders except for Patreon, which kind of qualifies. But I do plan on doing a crowdfunder someday. When I get things a little bit closer to having a nice, thick trade paperback or graphic novel that is mostly done so that I don't leave people hanging. If people that want to throw me money, I feel very responsible to get them that product as high quality and as on time as I can. And if I leave them hanging for more than a year, that's just not, I know that's common practice now, but I just can't justify doing that. So
it's not common practice.
I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. But I plan to be.
It's not common practice. I see a lot of crowdfunders happening on time.
Maybe not commonplace, I think is what I meant to say.
Yeah.
It happens. No one means for it to, but it does happen.
Yeah.
I just don't want to fall in that category.
You don't want to wind up like retro or anything. Be way behind.
It's not a dig at you, and it's not a dig at anyone else that happens to be behind.
No, it's like
I'm way behind a lot of projects too, and it just happens.
I have been hanging on by a thin strand for the last couple of years with my schedule. It's fair. It's like I'm late. It's it's like I do have my reasons, and they are legit. But even so, I wish I would got it done by now. But it will be out this year. It'll be out this year for sure. But yeah, I mean, the reason I sort of said about crowdfunding is I would love to see Randy crowdfunding single issues because I think he would pull in more fans and more money that way. But that's up to him. I can't control Randy yet. So
I'm sort of waiting for the distribution model to get settled for indie comics, and I'm hoping that it becomes a little bit easier and more conventional. And I had Hawk on Comixology for a long time, and then Comixology rolled over into Kindle, and I've dropped the ball on keeping that up to date. So now, like, I don't really have a great digital distribution for it either. So, which is a big problem. But when a lot of people see like completing a comic book as like, well, then I'm done. But the reality is, like, when you finish a comic book, that's really kind of the start of the journey of pushing the product and getting it out there. Because if you don't, it just becomes an inert object that just sits there. And you might sell it to a couple of your friends, but you're not going to get it out there in the world. So I definitely have my work cut out for me to get the word out that, hey, Hawk is still alive and it's still going strong. I originally planned 25 issues for it, and I'm on issue 7. So I would love to continue to do to get to 25 with it. And I think production schedule will allow me to do 2 issues between now and next year. So I should be up to issue 10 by 2024. That's conservative. I think I might be able to get to issue 10 by the end of next year, but we're kind of playing that one by ear.
Right. And for those watching that don't know, I did help Randy out a little bit last issue. I didn't actually ink Randy. I inked Mitch Rogers, who helped him out on the book as well. So this is like technically my second issue of Hulk New York. And Randy's doing the penciling. Well, you're like 80% done. You might want to go back and tighten up some stuff.
There's like 3 or 4 panels I really want to give more attention to. And my style is a little bit more cartoony than maybe what some people are accustomed to, at least for this genre. And I like blanking on the guy's name, but there was a 70s underground horror artist that kind of did a similar vein of kind of what I'm trying to do. But it always feels like an experiment. Every single issue that I produce has been a different experience. It's never been the same. So there's a lot of love in these pages and in the construction of the stories as it comes together that hopefully the readers will feel when they read it.
So you have a cover penciler for issue 7, since I posted it on the cover of this video. What's the artist's name?
Mark Wright. He did the inks on issue 4, and he. I had this concept, for the stories, the trope of the imposter, where you've got a superhero and somebody tries to pretend to be that superhero for whatever nefarious reason. That's become a trope of comics. So I started looking at old covers, trying to find an image that was close to what would be guys at a motocross event. I couldn't really find anything like that, but I found a Captain America cover that was Captain America fighting some doppelganger, and it was set in the stands of an audience. I don't know if he was at a circus or what, but that one resonated, and I'm like, man, I could do an homage to this. But Mark has been hounding me to do a cover, so I'm going to let Mark do this one, and I'll do the colors and the finish and everything on the trade dress and stuff like that. So traditionally, I don't do the covers. I've only done, I think, 2 covers. I did the first and second issues of Hawk, and since then, everybody else or someone else has done the subsequent covers. And it's kind of neat but it's also kind of like, well, actually, I didn't do that. I have to raise my hand. Like, actually, that was this way more talented guy. But it's not quite bait and switch, because everybody does that. I think you always want your best image to be on your cover. So I think Mark did a great job. He does a lot of retro art. He's on. If you're on Facebook, Mark Wright Art. Wright is spelled with a W. So like right-handed and then W on there. But Mark's a great guy. Sometimes.
It's a nice cover, and we should mention it's a very indie book. It's a black and white book. So if you're expecting colors and interiors,
I've got the cover up on the other screen, Peter. If you want to show it. I can't read the chat without breaking everything.
Okay, let's see. How do I do this? Is it this?
Yep, that's it. So I can't recall the issue number of Captain America that this is paying tribute to, but it's not a straight lift. It's more like, I think it was facing the other direction, and we made a significant amount of transformative, I think is the word, so that it's an original piece of art. And it was fun coming up.
Is it when Captain America, there was was it nomad period of time?
I think so, like the late
Yeah.
70s.
Yeah.
So, this comic is set in the early 90s. It's set in 1993, I think, or 94. So it's not the right era. But what I keep running into with younger fans is they don't know the difference. Like they're not able to delineate between the 70s and the early 90s. Like for them, it's just like, well, that was a long time ago. For me,
Yeah.
like the 90s feels like yesterday, and for most guys my age, it's like, yeah, 90s was just 5 years ago. It's like, no, it's been a minute. It's been a while.
Yeah. So let's see. Yeah, that we posted. Okay, so the next comment was Landon Fan Fusion. I mean, yeah, Phoenix Comic Con over 100,000. Yeah, that's a big convention. And
I'm trying to make it where I can read the chat and show images too. There we go. That's better.
okay. And his next comment is good luck with what you're doing with Time Bound, Randy. I do commissions. Let me know in the future if you need anything. Here's a link to my Instagram. And he posts his
You got
Instagram.
it. Hey, thanks, Landon. I appreciate that quite a bit.
Landon's a
I'll
talented
definitely
guy. He does good work.
out.
Yeah. And thanks. Good luck with the rest of the show, guys. Peace out. Well, thanks for coming around, man. Always appreciate people watching the show.
Well, I think you mentioned Peter that on.
You're breaking up a little bit.
You had mentioned that on one of your. Oh no.
You're okay now.
Kill this and then. Oh, I am. Can you hear me?
Yes. I can hear you. Maybe not. Let's try dropping that.
Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Come around, man. Let's try dropping that and watch the show.
Well,
You
did Peter on.
You're breaking up a little bit.
You
You had mentioned that on one of your.
I finally figured out what's going on. Okay. Sorry about that.
you get the video running.
Yeah, I had the video running and I didn't even know it. I apologize.
Yeah.
We
We don't get double the views if you play the video while we're streaming.
I'm going to stick with you. You know all the tricks, Peter.
Just want to make sure you can talk.
I noticed that you had mentioned that I was trying to sell ad space in Hawk 7. And I'm happy to say that space is now done, like it's settled. I'm open to the idea of selling ad space in 8, but as the script is still very much in early development, I'm not sure how much space I have.
I meant to ask you. Whatchamacallit? Do you have a little corner somewhere? It's like, I thought of it after the fact. It's like, I should just have a little square on a page.
Hey, throw up the share screen page again, and I'll show you kind of what I'm dealing with for in terms of page layout. This is the current status of the book, and the opportunities. Like this is a story featuring About Time Comics character, the Dreamer. So it's like a crossover, a 6-page crossover story. And then I've got a mask page, which possibly could be like that corner that you're talking about, because it's not finished yet. And then there's the Roadhog story, which is a new character. Well, it's new to Hawk New York readers, but it's not going to be new to my Grease Inc. magazine readers. So if there's anybody from Grease Inc. here, I seriously doubt it, but if you're here, you'll be happy to see that this story gets an ending and it gets a little bit more embellishment than what it saw in the one-page format for Grease Inc. magazine. So I'm pretty excited about that. Like I get to kind of expand those stories. And then it goes into the main story, which we're in development with. I do have an editorial page, but it's pretty much set. And I kind of have a funny story, but I don't know how much time you want to give me to tell the funny story. So I'll skip over that for now. And then we've got a backup story featuring the band Pure Ed, which is like a modern grunge band. Grunge has it's the music that's kind of been given true to form of Gen X, like it's been given short shrift of what the generation has been given, I think. So I'm giving Pure Ed as much love as I can because I think a lot of their music is really underplayed and needs a little bit more attention. And they've got an ad. The ad's done, but I just haven't seen it, so I can't mark it as Amber yet. And then I've got the Augusta Book Exchange. Augusta Book Exchange, located in Augusta. They're the ones that bought the back cover ad. This is a caricature of Paul Rogers. I believe it's by the artist Sheldon Eastman, if I'm not mistaken. And I colored by yours truly. And I threw this ad together for Paul. And if you're in the Augusta area, you should stop by, check out his store. It's really cool, especially if you're into tabletop gaming or if you want to pick up new comics. He's got back issues too. Nothing slab, but just like a back issue collection. But here's the editorial I was talking about, and go, Peter. The mic is yours. I've monopolized it long enough.
Okay. Now I just wanted to, like if you have a little corner or whatever, I was like, I should let him stick at least a mention of retro, like the logo and
something, the
team. So and it's been my plan for my book, since it's going to be retro issue 1 is going to be 28-page story and 40 pages in all. I plan to have a page for indie comics that I want to promote, and I've had 4 comics I wanted to promote, except one is never going to come out, or may come out in a different form. I don't know. The guy who was working on it is he had life issues and drama, and he's been working on it so long he decided to go a different way. So I'm not sure where the original story will ever show up, but anyway. I got 3 other books, and I was going to look for a third, and we're pretty close. So, I can put Hawk and Hog in
it. I've got this blown up big enough where if somebody wants to stop the video later and read the whole thing, they can. I didn't really intend on this going live, but if you read it, it's about my friend Jay, who worked on the original cover for 7, and Jay unfortunately passed away. Well, I shared it with his dad because I wanted to print it, and I wanted to get his permission. And this is the likeness of Jay here, and I used that app, that my personal profile pic app that's trending on Facebook right now, and not thinking anything about it. And then I see this Daily Mail thing that's like it's a Russian hack, and then I see this Snopes article saying it's not a Russian hack. And so I don't know what it is, but I just thought whatever. You're not gonna with I just probably traumatized Jay's dad even further, for showing him that. But he was amenable, and I had sent it to him and I didn't say, well, you can't post it. Well, he went ahead and posted it. I'm like, well, okay, now it's on the internet. So, it's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. We'll just go with that. Like it was a little bit earlier draft than this one, but it says exactly the same thing. So, but I wanted to honor, of course, George Perez passed, and before that it was Neil Adams, and before that it was my friend Jay. And I feel like those guys were both legends, and they both had huge impact on me and a lot of other people. But I felt like they would be covered a lot better elsewhere. So I wanted to talk about my friend Jay a little bit. He was much lesser known, but equally brilliant with both of those men. And I don't say that lightly. Like he really was truly genius, had genius intellect, and was a dear friend. I'll always miss him. But I got to get cracking on Hockey New York, and the show must go on without him. So I just wanted to put that up there. And then I got some funny fan art from Martin Speed, who had a spoof on the Ghost Rider's first appearance there. Just kind of a fun thing to put in there. And then the other page, the mask page, this could be turned into the opportunity. I don't have to run all of these photos. These are just like fans, mostly friends of mine wearing the Hockey New York, the official mask of Hockey New York that's got the insignia logo sewn into it. And it's the official, war paint design that Eric Worden, the Hockey New York, wears. I'm just really proud of these. My mother made these. She's a professional seamstress. She's retired now, but she for many years worked on clothes that was on USA Today and different shows, mostly local people, mostly like bridesmaids dresses and stuff like that. So
Nice.
But I thought I'd show you, kind of what I'm working with in terms of space. The inside front cover looks like this, kind of a stylish design. I don't really want to put any. I did my best to kind of link to anything else that's on there. I think for One Night Only, I could put a QR code that would link to over here. Like there's room to put a QR code, but not much. There's not much else. Maybe your QR code should be over here, and then mine would be over here. I can't remember which one that goes to, but those are just like ways that we could be discovered. If somebody wants to work out all the read comic book, okay, I'm not, who am I to say that's wrong? I learned to embrace the code embedded into comics because it truly is a handier shortcut. I don't know how many people listening or watching this use those, but it's kind of nice to whip your smartphone out and scan it, and it goes directly to the internet. If you don't have a smartphone yet, then I'm with you because I want to get a flip phone sometimes. But most people have smartphones now, so that's kind of who I'm aiming for, is most people.
Hey, if I, I mean, mine's
like
kind of, my phone is kind of low end, but it's considered smart. I wouldn't say it's the smartest of all the phones, but but yeah, I think a lot more people have a smartphone. It seems like every kid has like an iPhone, or like the high end models, like the younger kids. Oh, we lost Randy. I'm sure he'll be back.
Sorry about that. That is not the button I meant to hit.
Oh, there you are. What happened?
I hit the leave studio button instead of the stop sharing screen button. I'm like, oh no. That was entirely my fault, and not I can't blame that one on you, unfortunately.
Not this time.
Not this time.
So, it's like, I know, like around this time, there's lots of my friends streaming, and so we don't have a big crowd watching us live. But for those that don't know you or your book, give a description of the character itself and what the book's about.
It's a it should. I kind of talked about Time Bound Universe earlier, but I'll talk about Hawk a little bit. Hawk is an orphan. He's an American Indian half breed. Like he is half white and half American Indian. I don't tend to gravitate towards Native American. I don't have a problem with people who want to use that terminology. I tend to gravitate towards American Indian um, for a couple different reasons, but it relates to the American Indian movement, AIM, and Dennis Banks and some of his books. When I was doing research in the early days, that that was the verbal tradition that I started subscribing to. So I mean nothing by it. So American Indian is what I'm going to stick with. It conjures up the right frame of mind for the iconic motorcycle riding vigilante type of character that you see in movies like Terminator and Rebel Without a Cause and things like that. So Hawk's in that vein. He is caught up in a corrupt system initially that's got ties to a motorcycle gang. And the motorcycle gang or motorcycle club. There are clubs and there are gangs, but this one is a club that essentially is a gang. So again, I mean no offense by saying motorcycle gang, because I know there's some very great clubs out there, but this is not one of them. The Devil Marauders Motorcycle Club is a very unusual club. It's got ties to some necromancy that they're dabbling with because they want to break free from their financial overlords, which happen to be the Asian mob, the Yakuza. So the Yakuza is trying to edge into New York City proper from the north. Hindham County is this fictional county inserted north of New York, and I kind of envision it somewhere between West Point and New York City proper. There's sort of a funneled effect that goes through Hindham. Hindham is kind of like this crossroads funnel thing that people have to pass through to get to New York City. So it has a lot of people who just like drive through it, but nobody really stays in Hindham unless they're locals. So Mohawk Springs is where he grows up at this corrupt orphanage that is ran by this club. Well, things have progressed, and he's kind of become a reluctant vigilante, like anti-hero, superhero, hero to many, because he inadvertently saved the lives of, or at least he gets credit for saving the lives of many men, women, and children primarily, and also at the same time wiping out very bad people. Murderers and drug dealers that he pitted the motorcycle club against a gang that was dealing at the Gates of Fire, which was like the narrow passageway that leads into the city part. So there's an element of gang warfare and the mob, and there's things being played with high and low all at the same time, and it all has to do with Hawk, and he's all caught up in the web of it. Because he has no family ties to speak of, he's not able to escape it. Like he's kind of trapped in this identity of as being this Hawk hero, when in reality he was essentially suicidal. But he had a twinge of conscience at the last minute. And for those of you who haven't read it, I don't want to spoil it all, but he saves the life of a young lady, and that causes him to inadvertently save all these people, which sets him up on a different path than what he was going for, which was basically, I'm just going to self-destruct and take out all these bad people at the same time, which it didn't work out for him. And now he's kind of trying to figure it out day by day. And that's more or less where we are now. In this story, it's an imposter story. So someone's pretending to be him, and he has to get to the bottom of why. And hijinks ensue. It's very much, if you're a fan of motocross, it's very action oriented and fun. This is probably the funnest Hawk story that I've done to date. So there's lots of stunts and things like that that hopefully, if you're a motocross fan at all, or even if you're not, like you can get something out of it. But that's kind of it for Hawk. There's a lot of subplots that are being developed and strengthened. Some concepts I've introduced I've not been able to follow up on yet. But that's it in a nutshell.
Yeah, sounds good. Lisa's 1% Cherokee.
She is. That's awesome.
Just 1%. She qualifies it like she's essentially a mutt. So
yeah, I'm basically gringo. I probably have more than 1% Native American. I've definitely got Creek, and I'm able to prove the Creek blood, but I'm not able to prove the Cherokee. The Cherokee is just kind of a suspect thing. So I'm probably like somewhere around about that 2-3%.
Yeah, I'm 100% Italian.
Well, a lot. I mean, the beautiful thing about comic books is you don't have to be Kryptonian to write Kryptonian stories.
Yeah.
You can make it up, and it's not meant as in any way offensive. I've gone out of my way to do as much research as I can and present Indian issues as respectfully as I can, as much as veteran issues, because I'm an Army veteran. I'm currently in the Army Reserves, and there's a lot of systemic problems associated with that. So there's a character in the comic book who's essentially he ends up becoming a mentor for Eric. That he's a Vietnam veteran who's homeless, and he's constantly hanging out in Eric's garage, and there's a life debt there that Eric owes him from the events of issue 3, and he's a really fun character to write because he's got a perspective that's not shared by anyone. He lives on the streets. He's very much connected to that homeless population, kind of a la Spawn. He's sort of like sticks up because he realizes that Eric is rich, and in a way he's rich. He's not necessarily financially wealthy, but he's got a lot of resources. He inherited a ton of motorcycles and buildings and land, and he doesn't really know what to do with it. And Doc helps him process all of that. He's constantly selling bikes and bike parts and stuff, and that's how they make a living. And that's how Hawk is able to build, custom bikes. And I try to get him on a different bike every so often. He's never on a single bike for too long. Eventually that may change, but right now I'm just enjoying exploring vintage motorcycles, drawing those and trying out different genres of that motorcycle culture. It's vast and it's untapped as near as I can tell. Usually when comic books do motorcycle stories, they don't understand the culture. I don't even drive a motorcycle, but I've been to lots of events and talked to different people that are in clubs, and it's very interesting the world they live in versus the world that someone not into that kind of thing lives in. And it's actually much more positive than one would think. It's not the image of that is not as good as what I think reality is. Like, I think in reality, these are really good people most of the time. Some of the time you've got, Hellraisers and things like that. And that's not a club name. If it is, I'm sorry. I did mean it that way. Hellraisers as in just troublemakers. Like, occasionally that happens, but that's the exception, I think, and not the rule, because it takes a lot of skill to drive a motorcycle, like that's the reason why I don't ride motorcycles. I'd probably wreck it. I think the last time I was on a motorcycle, I did wreck it. So I have a mini bike, and I don't know if that counts, but probably not.
I was only a passenger once on a bike, but we, like in my area, we have clubs that pass through like a lot, and so you'll see a dozen or 20 motorcycles going, passing through,
Mhm.
on some destination wherever they gather. I have no idea, but yeah, I mean, there's like good and bad of anything, you know.
Yeah.
There's good comic creators like us, and then there's bad like Jimmy. But
You said that, not me. I like
I,
Jimmy's comics. I think he
um,
makes good comics. I really do that. I've been a fan of him for a long time. And,
well,
and, and a lot of times, like when you go back to your childhood, it's like you don't know, you didn't pay attention to who wrote what or who drew what. You just knew you liked it. Like, well, I like Batman. Well, okay, as you get older, you're like, wait, what happened to Batman? This is not the same Batman that I remember. What happened? And then you start looking at who was involved in creating it. It's like, oh, well, that was Norman Brayfogle. Oh, okay, that's why I like that. And then now it's like, oh, this guy. All right. Well, so that's somebody else's favorite Batman, I'm sure. But you're always going to have your same. But my point is, like, you don't always know who's doing what when you're a kid, and your brain keeps building the memories on that anyway. And so as an adult collector anyway, I have fun trying to figure out, like, well, how did I form that opinion? And usually I'll trace it back to a single writer or a single artist. And your brother's written a lot, quite a bit.
yeah,
Been involved
I
in a
mean,
lot of things.
like he was like me, like initially an inker, and he's literally inked thousands of books. I always say, like, he's inked thousands of books. I inked a couple hundred.
To me, that's mind blowing. That's absolutely mind blowing. I couldn't.
Yeah,
I won't live long enough to do that.
and while he's pretty much 100% a full-time writer now and creator, he does occasionally dabble in art, for like sketch covers or certain things, through his company, Paper Films. And like Paper Films is him, Amanda, Frank Thierry, and a number of other people. I forget. Like, there's a whole collection of people that work under the company name. And Jimmy's done whatever 19 Kickstarters, and they're always on time. But
For him, I hope to be able to say that someday.
yeah. But well, okay. So my point of bringing up the fact that Lisa's 1% Cherokee was the fact that, like, it's great that I mean, that's what drew me into your character. It's like, it's not just another American white boy character. It's like, and like with Retro is not, he's Italian. He's like I don't know many Italian here. Like, so, whether I play that up or it's just a fact that that's what he is, remains to be seen. But I so part of me enjoys the fact that he's Italian, and there is the potential of doing something with that. But meanwhile, like, as I see the character, he's like the protector of the five boroughs, so of all New York.
Growing up where I did, I grew up in kind of the middle of nowhere. That it was west of the Mississippi, but not by much. The northern Arkansas is the place that I come from and spent all my formative years. My father is a retired professional rodeo cowboy. He took us to lots of rodeos growing up. So naturally, we watched a lot of Western films, watched a ton of John Wayne movies. He wasn't a big fan of Clint Eastwood, but he was more old school with John Wayne. And naturally, there's lots of Indian influence in that. Now, the
Right.
way the Indians were portrayed in those movies, that's another, another thing altogether. A lot of that hasn't aged well, but things have progressed to the point where we can acknowledge that, and I think that's progress for sure. But that influence of my mother telling me about her grandmother who looked just like she was full blooded, but she was, I think, half blooded or full blooded. I have to look it up. Sorry, Mom. But there's an influence there that, it's hard to describe. And I can't describe it with any real justice. And that's a shame. I think so much of the culture of that philosophy is not well understood, and I think that the Lakota or the Sioux, you might notice the Sioux and the Cherokees are the best documented Native Americans or American Indians that we've got, and their influence drowns out all the other tribal cultures that existed that were completely different than what the Lakota or the Cherokee might prefer. So
Yeah.
so much of that is just gone. It's just gone. You can call it what you will, but the fact is, it's just not here anymore. We'll never recover most of that. And I think that's a shame. And that's part of Hawk is that there's this character that he's half American Indian, but he doesn't know anything about being an American Indian. So he's walking into it completely blind, into that culture completely blind. Doc will lead the way because there's more to Doc's backstory that I've not got into, because Doc is a full-blooded American Indian, and I shy away from defining their tribes. I've kind of got some tribes picked out in my mind of who they would belong to. And there's a whole backstory of Eric's tribe that I've developed, but for world building reasons, that may or may not become a story someday. But the fact is that Doc is going to get him to a reservation because Doc used to live on a reservation, and that's where he's going to kind of come to grips with his roots and learn more about who he really is and discover more about his destiny. This is a comic book, so there's going to be some magical elements that come into play more and more as the series progresses. This is sort of like the street vigilante years that, he's just this guy who's like a hero to certain people, and his popularity is growing, his legend is growing. So the next couple of issues after this one will explore that a bit more and kind of solidify his legendary status.
Right. Yeah. I mean, you said it takes place in the 70s. Is that right?
Which does
The story?
no
No.
takes place in the early 90s.
Early 90s. Or,
Yes.
Yeah. Before now.
He has the ability to move through time because of the events of issue 6, but he chooses not to for the most part, because basically his power is like, you can go through this portal, but you don't know when or if you're going to come back. You don't know where it goes. So there's got to be a pretty doggone good reason that he's going to use that thing. It's not like Nightcrawler where you can just bamf across the room at will. It's more like Quantum Leap where he disappears into some other world and he has to solve a problem to get back. So that's kind of more or less the powered element that's at play here. Although Hawk does not himself possess any powers, he will uncover his true destiny as that relates to power as the series unfolds.
Right. Well, like I was just gonna say, like, like, okay, so it's in the 90s. Well, back in the 90s, a lot of the world was still like the 70s. Like,
Yeah.
you can't say that today because so much has changed.
Yeah.
Like, like the 90s
certainly
were very
currently
similar to the 90s was very similar to the 70s, but now in the 20s, it's way different than it was even like 2008, 2005. Like so much has changed. The world is so different, for better or worse. I kind of understand my parents, like in their worldview back when, like, like so many things change, and how they dealt with it and whatnot, and how we're dealing with it now. And
yeah, it certainly is different. That my son is interested in programming. He's like, yeah, I like programming. And I'm like, okay, can you show me some code or something? He's like, yeah, sure. So he takes me to this website, Scratch, which is developed by MIT, and I'm expecting it to be like what I grew up with programming. It's a monochrome screen. You put in numbers and letters, and you spell out the code of what this thing does. Play the note G for 4 beats, and you go beep, and that took you 10 minutes to make that program. No. This site has got code bits of code like that, but they exist as puzzle pieces. So he just clicks and drags these puzzle piece code and assembles the program that he wants, which to me is mind blowing. Like, I'm like, you're able to do so much more and make actual games. You're able to make animations. You make it much faster than when I was a child. And that alone, like if that had existed as I was a child, I would have turned out a lot different, I think. But if that is true to form as far as like where things are going, like paper is really a niche item right now. Like I don't know where it's going to be 10 years from now. It's hard. I don't have a crystal ball, but it's mind blowing to see how much and how fast things have developed in the past 20 years or so.
Yeah, it's like I remember in New York from the 70s, and it's gotten so cleaned up since then. I used to go on trains that looks very sketchy themselves, and that were covered from top to bottom with graffiti, and
it's the Hawk of New York that cleaned them up.
Yeah. But yeah, you're talking about programming, and man, my first computer was an Atari 2600, and I remember picking up a magazine and said, well, if you type all this in, you can create this simple game. And it was like pages and pages of code. And this is back when I didn't even have a disk drive initially. I had a cassette drive, and I typed it all in, which took forever. I wasn't a typist back then. Not that I am now, but
yeah,
a little more so than I used to. But and then saved it to a cassette, which took forever, and then played it. And it was just like the simplest of games. It was so ridiculous. But yeah, like,
it took you hours to do that, right? Like it took you a long
hours.
It's painful.
It was like, that was a kind of a waste, but it was kind of exciting and fun at the same time because it was all new, but yeah, it's just so funny. And yeah, it's like I hope that nothing is lost. It's like my worry is that things move fast. Things move forward so fast that are we losing anything in the process? And you're talking about like the specific Indian tribe that is lost to history, like that's sad. Like and um what I'm trying to do, like in my career, it's like I'm not only doing what I love, but I'm trying to keep traditional alive. You
Yeah.
know,
Well, I think
and
in business school they talk about like the viable concepts for um, what makes a business, bankable, and one of them is prevent the end of something good. So
yeah,
that's the goal. Is like this is something good and it's worth preserving, and that's where a lot of our efforts need to be focused. I think that I'm way more literate than I would have been if had comics not been invented, or had I not had access to comics rather,
yeah,
when I was a child. Because growing up where I did, I turned out okay, because of I had access to these things that forced me to develop my vocabulary. Not that it's so great now, but I did all right. I did all right,
yeah,
considering you know uh, considering everything. Comics pulled me into a world that I think is more tangible than other mediums, where with video, less is left to the imagination, and it moves at the pace that the director has set. Comics you can read at your own pace, and you can go back, and it's much more happens up here when you read a comic than watching a Netflix animation. A lot of animated movies, my confession is I can't get through them. I get really sleepy watching them because I kind of find them to be flat. If the voice acting is not synced up just right with the action, I can't do it. And the I would much rather read the comic book that the movie's based on than watch the movie. But that's me, and that's how I grew up reading those things. I wish that the bigger companies, or at least some publishers, more publishers, catered to families that are looking for cheap entertainment for their kids that will help them learn to read better. And not educational comics, but trusted comics, like comics that they can feel safe giving to their kid. Like, hey, here, read this. It's not going to hurt you. It's going to help
yeah.
you get better at
You know,
reading, um, and safer, I guess, safer stories. But I don't know that Hawk is really there. I think there's certainly in the early issues it was a lot rougher than what this one is. This one's not G rated, but it's hardly R rated either. It's kind of a solid PG, I think, because there's a lot of action and adult themes, but the earlier issues were closer to the R rating, I guess. And I just kind of learned that audience is limited. Like you can reach more people
well,
by making it more of a PG kind of comic.
a lot more. From what I see, a lot more parents are okay with their kids seeing more adult material at a younger age. And it's like it's up to each parent to really like
Yeah,
check out their kids entertainment and make sure it's right for them or not or whatever. But it's like I click you know on your reading comments. The first 2 years of me buying comics, I didn't read the comics. I was so into the art.
yeah,
um, that I mean, I was reading comic strips at a young age. Newspaper strips. My father would bring home 3 or 4 papers a day.
yep.
Um, one of the comments I wanted to make before that came into my head was, like like, yeah, knowing New York back in the 70s, man, it's like any comic you picked up in the 70s and 80s and even 90s, whatever, like they had newspapers flying around. If it was New York or, some busy city or whatever, like there were newspapers and paper flying around. It's like you don't see that in comics now. It's like
No.
it's like, what's a newspaper? But yeah, it's like I didn't read comics initially, but once I did start reading, it just led into me reading novels, down the line and reading a lot. I'm still a fan of comics, and my schedule is insane. I don't have enough time in the world to read a lot. One of the things I read recently, I don't know if you're a John Romita Jr. fan, but I read the first issue of The Amazing Spider-Man, #1 new series. That John Romita is back at Marvel and the artist, and Zeb Wells, who I don't think I've read before. It was okay as far as a read. I mentioned this on the show before. I grew up on Roy Thomas and Jim Shooter and Marv Wolfman and so many great writers. It seemed okay. It was okay. It was like, it really depends where it goes, but I'm not impressed right now. And I believe with the first issue, you should put your best foot forward. So I didn't see it,
Yeah.
So I was like, meh.
I like stories that feel complete and not like, oh, I got to buy these 15 other issues and track them down and then to even know what the hell. I can't stand that. Like, I hope my comics are more like self-contained and where people can pick up, even though I've got this bigger story, people can pick up any random issue and enjoy it from beginning to end and not know or care what happened before or after. Hopefully they care what happened before. But
yeah, I mean that's what I'm going to be striving for too. It's like I definitely have a bigger story and places I want to go. But I want each issue to stand on its own to a certain degree. And I'm thinking initially, I haven't really want to sit down and plot out an outline for, a batch of issues. So, but I don't want to write too far in the future, like my art rep with his book Tragedy, he has, I think he said he had 19 issues written out, and he's currently crowdfunding the third issue. I mean, to a certain degree, that's amazing, but
it
doesn't allow for feedback. It's like
what made, I think, Marvel, what part of what made Marvel Comics so great was that they adapted to what people wanted. And they were able to look at sales and be like, all right, well, this is selling well, so we're going to do more of that. And, that happened to Ghost Rider when they relaunched him. Like in the 90s, like Volume 2 Ghost Rider was like, he's supposed to be this dark sort of underbelly part of the Marvel Universe. Yeah, well, that lasted for about 10 issues, and then he's in the Fantastic Four. It's like, this isn't even the same character. Come on, like, they saw that it was selling and they adapted to it, and they oversaturated, and eventually that didn't even make an issue 100, but they kind of killed what made it special, cool, I think. But I was going somewhere with that. It may, if you plot out everything like too far in advance, like you're saying, and you have everything scripted. I've got the first 120 issues scripted. Well, great, good for you. How fast are you going to produce that? Because if you can't produce it in less than a year, then you're going to be very inflexible, and you're not going to know what people like. You might have a hit character that you introduce in issue 4, and then you can't do anything with the fact that everyone loves this character because he's not in any subsequent issue, and you've got all these issues written that everyone loved this character, but now you have to rewrite everything because if you want to sell books, because people love that character and you didn't have any plans for him, and it's like you don't necessarily know what your strengths are until you get really going. And I've had to adjust my plotline more than once. What's happened to me is people come up to me and they want to be characters in the story, and I'm like, well, I do have this one character, and I can maybe make you into this character, and so many of the characters in Hawk in New York are real people, like, or loosely based or inspired by real people, consensually. Like, they're all okay with it, like they all know.
Right.
But I think I'm done doing that. I think the next time someone asks me, I'm just going to be like, no, thanks, because I'm going to be staring at this guy's face for years when I could just be making them up on the fly. It's much more fun to make up than to reference something. So.
Yeah, it's like I had a friend who put his wife in the comic, and then they got divorced. So
awkward.
I mean, the book didn't go more than 2 issues, but yeah, still. But yeah, I mean, like, it's. I believe in having a vision and sticking with, what you want to do. But you might, like if you, you could do an outline and sort of plan out, like, if you have a certain direction with the series and so forth. But if you write it out sort of as you go, you're open to new ideas, and it's like because I'm resistant as a creator writer to what people have to say, really. Like, it's like I want to be like Stephen King. It's like he doesn't go around saying, hey, like, I'm writing this book, Firestarter. It's about this little girl and a dad. They're running from strange people and blah blah blah, and he doesn't ask for input on his novels. It's like, I want to be that kind of writer.
Yeah, what you're at this stage. You know what you're doing, and you're open to ideas, but you're not open to people telling you what your craft is. And I fully respect that. There's certainly always more to learn, but those almost never come from your customers. They come from the established, industry leaders that are the Neil Adams and the George Perez, who, they're masters of their craft. Like, they really know everything. They've shaped the freaking, stadium you're standing in. Like they've been there, done that, and you're not going to tell them anything like that they don't already know. They're going to tell you if you listen.
Avengers was big for me growing up. It's like I read Avengers, Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk at some point. But like my brother was into Conan. I read whatever my brother had too, and he read whatever I had.
I was more DC, and my brother was more Marvel. And I was exposed to Thor and Iron Man through him because he was really into those characters. I was more into Batman and Ghost Rider, even though Ghost Rider's Marvel. But I love Superman. Like, I still love Superman so much.
I always love Superman, and 90% of the time he's not written well.
Right. That's
very like as a character. Only some people get him right.
Yeah. And I already said you don't have to be Kryptonian to write a Kryptonian character, but my God, you need to understand what a Kryptonian is.
Well, even like you could write them and not know the Kryptonian history. Like, just like, okay, Superman at the basics, he's a super powerful character. Don't make him freaking Boy Scout boring. you know, he could be a little, he could be freaking charming, you know,
Yeah.
and still be super powerful, and you know, like.
Hey, Peter. It looks like Mitch Rogers just joined us. The creator of
I don't know any Mitch Rogers. Who's this Mitch Rogers?
I always mispronounce his character's name. I think it's Bogra, and not Boger, but I could be. Maybe it is Boger. I always think of a bog like man thing, and that's not. Maybe I think it is Boger. Mitch, please correct me,
Borg?
please.
I don't know.
However you pronounce it, it's awesome. And if you're a horror fan at all, you should definitely check out his stuff like that. Mitch was the guy that you penciled or inked for Boger.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Mitch.
Boger. Okay.
Yeah.
Mitch is part of the Raging 2 network now. So you don't have okay, so Mitch doesn't have a wrench on my channel, which I'll correct if he's going to show up, or he's just showing up for you. But if you want to promote anything, Mitch, you could type it out at least. It's good to see you here, and I definitely have to get you on my channel once my sort of I'm trying not to do interviews, although I had one yesterday. This is kind of like just me and Randy hanging out tonight. And I do have a guest tomorrow, but mostly I just got to finish stuff. And Mitch pronounced, okay, so it's org with a B at the beginning. So Borg. Nice. That's a good way.
I've enjoyed the character, and I thought that issue that we worked on last issue was fun, and I typically tell people that it's like the old Marvel comics where the Thing and the Hulk meet for the first time and they mistake each other for supervillains and they fight, and then they realize that they're on the same side, and then they're friends after that. Maybe that's not the best example, but maybe the Hulk and Spider-Man, that might be a better one.
There you go. I will say this, like, when you asked me to help out with last issue, I was excited, and then you told me, "Oh, it's this guy Mitch Rogers pencils." I was like, "Oh man."
Mitch's pencils are very professional and very well constructed. He has more of an anime influence than what I have, but it's not a bad thing. It's just, I don't know. It is what it is. You need to buy. Anyone listening to this, they need to go buy issue 6. Mitch has copies.
Yeah, right.
Buy some of his.
Yeah. Like Mitch did amazing work. Really enjoyed inking over him, and who knows? Might get the chance one day again on something.
It would be cool to explore where the device that the Boger gives Hawk came from, and the reason why, like, he gave it to. I kind of interpreted the story as that he gave it to Hawk as by way of apology, of like, I was after you, but then I realized that you're the good guy, and the guy that summoned me is the bad guy. So here's a token, and I don't really have a good. I don't have much of a, because Ricky Zero scripted that one. My friend Ricky, and what he had in mind for where that came from, I don't know. And that's one of those plot threads that I'll have to figure out how to explain someday. But it definitely has given more story potential to Hawk, and it gives him the ability to travel through time and space in a way that he wasn't able to before. I've since done, the Kara Prime crossover with Brian Silverbacks. He launched Kara Prime on Indiegogo, or it might have been Kickstarter. I'm not sure. But it was like a 5 or 6 page story where Hawk uses the thing that Boger gives him, and he travels to the Kara Prime universe, and he has to solve a problem in order to be able to come back.
Nice.
And it was really a lot of fun. I'm very proud of that. I wrote that story, and I usually have some help when I'm writing, but that was 100% me. And it gave me a little bit more confidence in my own ability to write and craft stories like that. Because I'm more interested in developing as an artist than I am as a writer. But a writer could have been Mitch is saying something now. I do have story ideas focusing on if the Boger is sent after the wrong person. Oh, that's cool.
Oh, okay. Hold on a second. Sorry, I'm working here. I can't do everything else. Yes, that could be a good explanation. I do have a story ideas focusing on the book is sent after the wrong person. What you just said. So we've gone over an hour. It's almost an hour and a half. The main thrust is that me and Randy will be at Heroes Comic Con with issue 7 of Hawk in New York. That's June 24th to 26th.
Three-day convention, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah, so definitely if you like what either of us do, come by.
Let me throw that. I'll throw that cover up one more time if you don't care. Oh, I gotta leave this open.
You'll figure it out.
Yeah. It's not paper, so I don't understand it. Here's a quick preview of the Roadhog story that is featured in issue 7. Not going to linger too long, but this is my draft that starts with the Dreamer, where he's using the device the Boger gave him. And I gave Mitch some credit here. I don't know if he can see the fine print, but no, that was a mistake. Abort. It's here. The Boger is trademark Celtic Cross Studios. The Dreamer is trademark About Time Comics. Both are used with permission. So, Mitch, now's your time to object. It's actually too late, but
let's
this
get in.
is kind of a fun, quick story. But yeah.
You have copies of your books in your store, Envy?
Ordinarily, I'd have some up here, but I think I moved them down when I was cleaning up earlier. Can't tell that I cleaned up, but I did. No, I've got a book on Jack Kirby. That's something.
That relates to us.
Yeah, somehow.
Mitch says no biggie.
All right.
I'm sure the editor fix everything once once the book is.
I could probably bring up the digital cover of issue 6 right quick.
Yeah, as well.
I'll do that.
We'll go check out the 3 of us working together, in a sense.
Let's see. I
also did story consulting on issue 6.
Yes, that's one of those vague terms that I don't know if I made that up or not, but it's like it's like not quite editing, but it's like, hey, don't do that. Don't do that. You know, it's like, come on. And my friend KJ Eldridge, like he does a comic book called Wolverine. He worked on the first issue, and he wanted to be editor, and I'm like, well, you didn't really edit, like you kind of like helped, but I wouldn't call what you've done editing, because I was the one that had to edit. Here it is. This is the Boger in all his glory.
Yeah, awesome.
This was the last issue. We got Randyl Bishop, Peter Palmiotti, Mitch Rogers, and Ricky Zero on the cover. Quote by Marilyn Manson.
Mitch says story editing or story consulting. And he goes, same thing.
Same, yeah. I've since figured out that nobody cares. So,
well, it's like credit is important to us, but most people who read comics, it's like, it's like about the character, about the story, about the art, not necessarily who made the thing. It's like when you go see a movie or whatever, or anything
right.
You enjoy, you don't care where it came from or whatever. But this has been fun, dude.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. This is probably my favorite page from that story. This is this panel. I really like how that came out. The page is not loading, but anyway. Yeah, thank you very much, Peter, for having me on. I genuinely appreciate it.
Yeah, Mitch did some great work. Really loved his style. Super tight. Good stuff. But yeah, so people can look forward to 7 by Us and seeing us at the convention. I'll be here tomorrow with he goes by Shadowpunk on YouTube, I believe. And I think his real name is Matt. Talking with Matt about his comic Shadowpunk. I took my artwork away because one of my cats showed up.
That's a cool name. Shadowpunk's an awesome name.
Shadowpunk. And has his comic is I guess it's 3D drawn or something. It's a very unique style. And he showed me a bunch of art from it, as well as a couple of animated trailers, and it looks really interesting. I'm not necessarily a fan of 3D rendered comics, but it does look very cool. So be talking to him tomorrow at 4. So tune in tomorrow. And I'm trying to stream every day. I don't know. I eventually gotta. I don't currently have the upgrade on StreamYard, so I have to get that. But I gotta cover my other bills first before I get back to doing fancy stuff on here, as well as streaming forever, because there's a time limit on how long you can stream.
For free. Really? Okay.
Yeah. It's StreamYard is awesome. It's it's great program to use for streaming on YouTube or anywhere.
I had to look at the StreamYard logo a little closer to make sure that S was not a $sign.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything worthwhile costs.
Right.
But it completely, like when YouTube, when Google Plus left, like before Google Plus left, we could stream through there, but it was so stupid and difficult, and it didn't make sense, and it was hard, and I had to make a video for people to figure out how to use it. Friends of mine are like, how do you doing that? How do you make it work? Anyway, StreamYard came around when YouTube stopped that function, and really blew out. And yeah, most people I know use it. Some people use what is it? Open OC. I forget now. What's it called? The other program in conjunction with
I'm
StreamYard.
just familiar with Zoom. I'm not familiar with any other. You introduced me to StreamYard, and it's been awesome because you can share your screen, and that's a big advantage over Facebook, FaceTime. That's not advantageous.
Yeah. But yeah, it's there's a lot you can do with it, and now it's like with when Alison joins me, she could do things like post the chat on the screen, so I don't have to worry about that, and also like make the different screens. Like I could do. Well, we only have 2 screens, so it's not going to do much. But I could do this.
Oh,
Or I never liked that screen. Like it just seems to like this gives breathing room. But but yeah, different things. Anyway, yeah, thanks for joining me tonight, and hope you had fun. And thanks to everybody in the chat. It's good seeing you, Mitch.
Thank you, everybody. Get Brian. I'm probably mispronouncing your name, but thank you for putting out my store link. That is the correct link. The timebound.co is easier to remember. Timebound.co. That'll redirect you to that site. So I'm using a Store MD account until I can get my own website up and running. But that works for my purposes for now. So thank you very much for the opportunity to put that on your show, Peter. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I got your links down below in the video description for people to check out and go to. And
hope to see everybody
like
at
this video.
HeroesCon.
Share it with your friends. What's that?
I said I hope to see everybody at HeroesCon.
Yeah, me too. I'll always see my brother and Amanda. But no, I usually run around and see everybody, and we all
absolutely. If you go to HeroesCon and you just sit behind your table the whole time, you're doing it wrong, man. Like you can